Thank you for coming. Our session is Procurement Power Moves, Smuggling Equity into Every Contract. I'm very excited to present alongside of Deputy Superintendent Jeff Dase, Dr. DeAndrea Fleming, former board president of DeSoto ISD, and also founder of Mark of Resilience. We will get into that with formal introductions. I'm just really excited that you all are here. If y'all want to scan the QR code for the content, I can come back to it later. Yeah. So the session objectives, I won't read them all to you, but my main objective, I really want to talk about how you can strategically analyze the impact of inclusive procurement policies that you all have in your organizations, learn different frameworks for identifying and collaborating with high quality minority vendors, and just strategizing and taking it back into your organizations and gain some more insight, real world case studies, as well as just insight from our leaders who are with us today. And so before we get deep into the conversation, I really wanted to know from our large audience why this conversation matters to you. So just really trying to poll, how is this relevant to your current role or what you are looking to gain from this session? So if you all don't mind maybe sharing out, and then also let me know how you serve.
So Dexter Britt, I work for education and nonprofit facing history in ourselves. And the title kind of stuck out to me just in the sense of like smuggling equity in the contract. So like when we talk with schools or districts to like promote our work, that's really kind of what we're doing. Like we're trying to, figure out ways to ease people's fears that may be legitimate, that also may be illegitimate when it comes to like wording and phrases, but also at the same time, like still do the work we're doing, to like impact classrooms and students. So that's what kind of piqued my interest for this session. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. And yes, ma'am, if you can share.
Sure, my name is Cheryl Harris. I am an education consultant and marketing director for Green Education Services. And a lot of what he said, the equity and the contracts really stood out. And then as far as the knowledge and gaining insight, knowledge is power, wisdom. And speaking with you on yesterday, some things you shared as well, it just is why I'm here.
Thank you. And so we're just sharing maybe why you came to this session, what you're looking to get out of it, and maybe how it applies to your current work, if you would like to share.
Oh, no problem. Good morning, everyone. I'm Natalie McKinney. I am a board member of Memphis Shelby County School Boards. I'm the chair for this school year. And we are a school system that is the largest in Tennessee. We are like 21st or 20, I think in the 20s in terms of one of the largest school districts. We are predominantly Black with a rising Hispanic population, and we reside in the blackest city in the United States. We surpassed Detroit a couple of years ago. And we are one of the poorest when it comes to our Black people and our Black children. So as we think about how, and we're also the second largest employer. So as we think about our demographics and our history and the fact that the Black middle class was brought up, was created through the school system, I want us to be cognizant about how we award contracts and how we continue to build Black wealth. If that as a way through our contracts, but also because these are our students, these are our kids, this is the future of our community. So I want our vendors to invest and know what that means and that it is our responsibility.
Thank you. Something you said that was powerful. It gave me some chills a little bit, but the education created the Black middle class. And I think that's very important because I can't act like I was all the way at the bottom and not at the top, but knowing that my family was very strategic and making sure we focus on education and identifying with it. So thank you for speaking on that and for being present and serving as a board member. So as we move forward, I really wanted to position this conversation as procurement being policy power and us really taking initiative and ownership and our responsibility in that process. And so as the education sector increases, we know it's deprioritizing equity. And so as you mentioned, even in the title, I just really wanted to be strategic. And this can be informal because it's a smaller setting. So I really want us to have an engaging, authentic conversation. I know a lot of people aren't saying certain words because they don't want that spotlight on them. Like, I gotta be I can't say equity. It's like, what are we gonna call it then? It's equity. So I wanted to be engaged, and I said, we smuggling equity at this point if we can't say it, but we know it needs to be done and it needs to be embedded in our contract. So I really wanted to make sure that we know it's an agenda to deprioritize equity, but it's something that we have a duty, especially coming here to this conference and in this space. These conversations have to take place, especially around the most powerful tool, which is procurement. So again, framing minority vendors, educational vendors as not just service providers, but as partners. I don't ever ask any of my partners to work with me because I am Black. Like, that's not the expectation. I want you to work with me because we have the best product, we have the best services, and I'm Black, okay? So that is really what this is doing, again, and then hearing from our leaders how they also take that into consideration. Just a little bit about me before we start. Locha Brooks, I'm the founder of First Class Educator. We're an educational consulting firm. I really started my organization because I know that everything that we do within the industry needs to be looked at from a culturally responsive lens. And so even when we think about procurement, that is something that I focus on. I won't do too much, but just wanted to share that. I will let Dr. Dase, Deputy Superintendent of Rock Island, if you just want to share a little bit about your background.
Yeah, my background, my second year in Rock Island as Deputy Superintendent. I don't have a specific area, pretty much. I handle it all, but myself and Locha, we met when I was in Decatur previously, Decatur, Illinois. So I was there for 5 years, Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning. Then I was Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. So we met actually at NABSE when it was in Dallas. And that was around the time of the George Floyd killing, murder. And people were, equity statements and all of that. So we were looking for people to do the work with our district. And we met at the conference, and actually, I think we gave you your first contract, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I gotta point that out.
Gave us our first contract. I'm very grateful.
But it's been a great partnership ever since, and like she said, quality work, or we still wouldn't even still be together like partnering like this. But glad for the continued partnership.
Thank you. And then Dr. Fleming, if you would like to give a brief introduction.
Sure. Dr. DeAndrea Fleming started in the classroom, moved through the system, really just working with, low socioeconomic populations, realized that I needed to stop working in the system, work on the system. God had a sense of humor. He said, leave your paid job for a free job. And so I ran for elected office. I became a school board member, and then got into the seat. And in a thriving district in which I lived, predominantly African-American district, realized that we had hit financial crisis. From there, we went from an A-rated district to an F-rated district in a matter of a year, and we had 2 years to turn around because we were under state conservatorship. Within that 2 years, I took the seat as board chair. We turned the district around 2 years later than that, from an F-rated district back to an A-rated district. So when you talk about what happens for student outcomes, that they don't change, the adult behavior change, it's what I truly believe in. I understand the work of equity, I understand the work of procurement, I understand the work of academics, I understand the work of policy. And if your policy is not in line, then your people are not in line because your practices are not in line. And so all these things are probably the spearhead to how we truly improve academic outcomes for our students.
Thank you.
And I met Locha. And I had Locha along the way. Locha just came up to me one day and just said, hey, I don't know who you are, but I want to know more about what you do. And she was asking how. And this is really how we met, just a conversation of procurement and the work. And I met her at NABSE as well.
So, and I just always like to share how powerful NABSE has been in my life. First attending as a classroom teacher for several years and still having people in my building like lean on me for support. And I'm like, we paying consultants to come in. Let me start my consulting business. And then the year that it happened to be in Dallas when I met Dr. Dase, that was my year of showcasing my consulting firm, and really showed that we had a nice team lined up, and that has been life changing. So NABSE, I'm very grateful for the connections like Dr. Fleming, mentor. It's good to know what this organization is doing for Black educators. All right, so one of the things I just want to poll the room very quickly, 3 short questions, and this is for those who are in districts or however this question may apply to you. Does your district's procurement policy mention equity explicitly? Okay, I think I know the answer. And if you guys want to maybe hands up if you know if it mentions it specifically. I didn't expect too many hands. Okay, the next one. Have you ever lost a high impact minority vendor to a technicality? Is that something you all know that has happened in your district? Okay, and is your top district vendor a minority vendor?
Oh for 3.
Okay, yeah, 0 for 3. The reason why I wanted to, just kind of engage in those questions is because as we talked about the word equity, that is something that we are seeing being deprioritized in organizations, whereas there was originally everybody running, we want to bring in equity consultants and do this, but as soon as they got the call, pressing the button on that. So I just wanted to see if anybody still had that in their policy. And then in regards to losing high impact minority vendors, just even with within this last year, speaking with organizations that had to stop engaging in work because of the funding, because of technicalities with fundings and things like that. So I was just saying that impacted you all. And as far as district vendors being your top vendor being a minority vendor, that's almost like an anomaly. And so, just as I suspected. So I did want to expound on the partnership that I developed with Dr. Dase and really understanding what they were going through in his district and speaking on it simply because I do think it's important for everybody that's involved in the process to understand, as I mentioned, I don't expect just to get work because I am Black, but understanding what are the thought processes of leaders when they are engaging, and if these are some strategies that you can explore. So Dr. Dase, I did just want you to kind of speak on the partnership a little more, so including why First Class Educator was selected, some barriers that you guys may have had, and then, some outcomes. If you could just talk about the partnership a little bit.
When we started out in Decatur?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So I was actually, again, it was around that era of COVID, George Floyd. And, right after that, I can remember the district saying, we should put out an equity statement. And they came right to me because I was the Black administrator. And I was like, I said, yeah, sure. We could put out a statement on what we're doing aligned to equity. What are we doing aligned to equity? And we didn't have anything aligned to equity. So I was like, again, we should be able to put out a statement when we're talking about fairness and everything, talking about the work that we've already done, but we didn't. So a lot of people were reactive to it. And great thing came out of it, reactive. When I went to the conference, we were actually looking for someone to do the work. But one of the first questions that I asked her, I was like, hey, do you have someone that doesn't look like us on your team? Because when you want to get the goal accomplished, sometimes it doesn't necessarily get accomplished through someone that looks, a Black person. So my thing is, if it's someone still with that mindset who can deliver this to a majority white teaching population, because in Decatur, 96% of the teachers are white. You only have 36 teachers who are African American or Black. So that helped out when she showed the picture of her team, and we went into a 2-year rollout with the teachers. We did the administrators first, and then a 2-year rollout. First year was the administrators, then 2-year rollout with the teachers and groups and it was always about sustainability. So during that time I was over teaching and learning, so it was good to integrate that with teaching and learning, and things are not separate. But it was a good partnership. And one thing that we're going to get to later is it wasn't that first class educators was coming in and providing a service, but they also became a part of our community. You know, going to community events, sponsoring community events. So people were actually, you know, who's this company? Do they work for the district? Are y'all paying them? You know, what's going on? But they became a part of the community, and that's why I think the work is still has been sustained in the district where they're still there. So I think that's an integral part of having not just with the minority vendors, but any vendor that, are they really investing in your total district, or are they just coming in providing a service, saying, hey, we did this, pay this invoice, and then they're out. So.
Thank you. So I really wanted the Q&A format for me to engage you all in questions, but I would like to incorporate the audience at a certain point if you all have questions. But I want to start off having a former board president, a current sitting deputy superintendent, just thinking about you all's trajectory in the industry, and then at a certain point understanding like, hey, our procurement processes are not equitable. And just coming from that lens, I have a few questions to start. Before equity entered your contracts, what did procurement primarily protect? Compliance, students, like what were you all seeing with the procurement processes that were taking place early in your career and then later on when you started to kind of apply some strategy?
Early in my career, I could say protect. When I was a principal, I was a principal for 9 years, Chicago Public Schools. The protection that I saw was the system. You know, keeping the system, and you have procurement, but it's like we're just working with these vendors, and some people say the good old boy system, because a lot of them didn't look like us, and they were overcharging. You know, it's like we can get this posted paper for this amount, but if you went out to Office Max, it was way less. So they're like doubling the prices, so it's a money game. And when we're talking about fairness, and look at what districts are going through now, financially strapped, well, that didn't just happen overnight, because a lot of these vendors and consultants and stuff are still, you know, overpricing, and people really don't look at that. Oh, well, we got the money from the state, we got the money from the federal government. So I always say, let's get the most for our students. So I'm handling this, I'm the principal, as if this is my account, my personal account. I'm not gonna waste this money because I can get more for my students if I'm fiscally managing this right. So I would say it wasn't any protection for the students or anything. It's just, it's a money grab. It can be a money grab if people are not really watching it. And I think some things have come out recently for districts around the nation where if they don't have the checks and balances, it can get out of whack real quick.
Thank you for that. Dr. Fleming, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, to what Dr. Dase said, extending on that, it was an exchange of goods and services with the lack of accountability. I think, you know, looking back, running a school and then becoming a board member, when you looked at who was getting the contracts and how often they were getting contracts, it really was whoever ran the finance office. Whoever was over that office and who you knew coming to IE conferences, coming to IE, you know, I'll say and I'm going to say this, let's just call a spade a spade. We don't know who was pocketing money because they got contracts. There was no way, and still no way, to find out who's getting this. And so what they do is hold board members accountable to be ethical and saying that we cannot insert ourselves in contract negotiations. But at the end of the day, the superintendent's not held accountable. The deputy is not held accountable. The principal's not held accountable to bring all these people to the table. And so the reason why I was, you know, so adamant about how do we add equity and how do we add evaluation and accountability into the table, because our children on the back end losing. Our teachers were more stressed out with more programs that we were bringing. Like the reason why you have to keep asking yourself, why are we changing so many programs? Why are we bringing so many things at the table? Who's winning behind this? Because if we see that it's not working, why do we continue to do the same thing? And if it's not working, who do we hold accountable when it's not working? And so when you talk about how has it been? I think we may have just moved the needle, but when we look at it from an equity lens, it's why we have to move the needle, right? Because the more we continue to do some of the same things, our children continue to lose out because there's no accountability in the process.
Thank you both for that. Another question, I want to know if you can identify what forced your first equity-based vendor decision.
I went first last time.
Sure. What forced it?
What forced it? What for? If you,
And I'll say this. So I've had mentors. I think for me, when you talk about what forced it, I know some of your consultants in the audience, and I'll start from a larger scale. You talk about bonds. Let's look at it from, with infrastructure. That's probably one of the largest things that a school district will ever go after, and that money is a pot that it brings a lot of interest to the table. When you're bringing them to the table, the question is, then how do I hold this body accountable? So say if we did a bond for $80 million, and then you said, ask your question again.
What forced your first equity-based vendor decision?
So you have all of these architects, right, that are in the pool. Most of them don't look like us, but there are many that do. How are they at the table? How do they get to the table to even negotiate their contract to show their skill set and their body of work? Many times they have to show up to conferences like these to say, hey, we're here. We have to take you out to eat. We have to wine and dine you. And at the time that we wine and dine you, we're still probably going to go with the larger person. Why? Because when they're submitting these proposals, we're looking at it and say, oh, this looks pretty. This looks good. They actually have the capacity to complete this body of work. And then we'll look at this other vendor and say, oh, maybe they don't have the capacity. And so one of the things when it entered the conversations that I'm looking at as I was able to sit on the committee, I looked at it from a perspective of, wait a minute, you have two people who have the body of work. Why did we just choose this one and why did we score them higher? Because there is a score sheet. And on the score sheet, I saw there's a line that said if they were in NWBE, Minority Women Business Enterprise, if they had that endorsement, there should be points that are allocated towards that. It had 5 points, and everything else had 20 and 30 and 40. Wait a minute, hold on. We're only giving 5 for this because they have to pay, they have to go through all these processes and everything else. And what I was learning is that when you do NWBE certifications, that white women, the white men were giving the white women, their wives, the ability to apply for these. So that's how they were qualifying and getting those points. And so I said, well, then that's all things being equal, then let's up the ante and make this 20% of the, we were changing the policies. So that's how it entered, because I wanted to change the policy and how they were able to come to the table and actually be at the table more, so that when you're saying they're competing from this body of work, they never were able to get the contract. So how are you holding them accountable to saying, what work have you done? It's not, and so now you take that and apply it at the highest level, and you take that to any other consultant who's trying to walk into the district. They haven't been there. You're being prime contractor, and you're trying to find your way into a district at a subcontractor. So when we're talking about equity, now you're looking at it from the lens of, from a board member, and I don't want to belabor this, but I do have to add this. From a board member's perspective, what are your board goals? From a superintendent's perspective, what are you spending your money on when you're looking at your finances? So if I look at your finances and you said the board goal says we're focused on reading, then I should look at your finances and say, oh, well, 80% of your budget should be focused on reading if you're saying this is a deficit. Mm-hmm. And if it's 80% deficit, then I need to go find the vendors who can do what? Solve this problem. Now, if I'm only dealing with the vendors that I already had, and I keep hiring them, and they haven't solved the problem, then what are we doing? So equity has to enter the conversation of who am I after who can solve the problem.
Damn.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I heard policies and systems. That's where it starts. But real quick to answer that is what forced me was integrity, because I saw it was this not right. Mm-hmm. This not fair. I could get more out of this. So I was doing equity work before the buzzword of equity, because you do what's right. And if you care about your population, you start doing that research. So now I'm seeing, okay, this is what's in the system. Let me find a vendor who can do the same work and maybe negotiate the prices and stuff. So, and people planning, preparation, time, and that takes time. But if you really truly care about that population and getting more for your students, which I did as a principal, then you're willing to do that legwork.
Perfect. My next question is, what risk, political, financial, professional, did you calculate before approving minority-led vendors? What risk, political, financial, professional, did you calculate before approving minority-led vendors?
The risk is, you always take a risk if they don't have a background. You know, now I ask for background. What districts have you worked for? You know, do you have some success rates? You know, give me some data. Can I call anyone? So that's background that I do. So you're taking a risk for anyone. When we talk about minority companies, a lot of times, a lot of that I've dealt with, they're startups. So it's like, okay, I do want to go with a minority, but they don't have the background. So that's a clear conversation up front with the vendor. Is like, okay, we'll enter into a 1 year. I'm not going into a multi-year contract with a startup vendor. So I'm giving you a chance, but I'm giving you a chance to prove it. And because I need quality. I need quality for my students. I need quality for my district, for our schools. And then we go from there. But minority contractors, if they're not big, you know, like the big names, they face the scrutiny. So if they face the scrutiny, you're facing the scrutiny. So it's like, if they don't deliver, now it's on your name. And like I tell them, I say, we can either open or close doors for each other. So let's be real and let's be serious about this.
Thank you.
For every decision, be willing to absorb the consequences. And one thing I know is that there were not enough doors open for me. What I know is that there was a lot of work that I was putting on the ground that I even though you hear the titles behind my name, for every time I had to do so much more to get that approval. There are people that are sitting in this audience who are just saying, listen, I have something, I have the data, I have the results. I'm just waiting to get in the door. And we're looking at each other saying, well, when are you gonna open the door? Can you at least just can I put my pinky toe in the door? Sitting on that board, I faced a lot of political scrutiny. I barred none. I mean, I understand this. And I told them, if you didn't want me here, that don't vote for me next year. And I was clear on that. What I was not going to settle and sit in the space and do is not ask, how many are minority vendors? How many applied? How many did you go find? How long did we put out the RFP? How long did we leave this out here? And when you saw them, who was at the table for the committee? Like, I always ask questions. One of the things of, even as a vendor, you know, I just told them, I said, so many times we get stuck in doing things the same way that we can't even be creative. Like, who told you the system had to be that way? So that means I question what we're doing for our kids. So if you are stuck in this rigid way of thinking, even for our vendors, then we must be stuck rigidly in thinking for our children. So if they're minority vendors, then how don't you find a way to pool at least 5 of them and evaluate them, split the contract. Who said the contract had to go to, if we have $150,000, who said it had to go just to one? Because now we can test them, we can evaluate them. I think we pay our superintendent to find who has assistant superintendents who can oversee some of these things. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like so many times we get stuck in this one thing that I got all these things to do, but we have so many more things to do, because as a superintendent, you are the CEO. Sometimes we forget that, yes, you are the CEO of academics, but you are the CEO of a business. And the business deals are made when we are trying to be innovative and creative for getting the best people in front of our children. The same way you're looking for the best teachers, we should be looking for the best vendors. And so it should not come at a disservice to say, we've been using certain big names all our lives. And it's nothing to take them down. And I've told been in the vendor pool, I see them all the time. I love being out in the vendor world. But I also told them it comes at a disservice because you've gotten too comfortable. You get to walk in with your big name and say, oh, we've been here. Why? Because you get to pull out your big pockets and you get to, schmooze us. But at the end of the day, I keep saying, what has changed in the school? And so what are we willing to do and who are you willing to partner with? I've even challenged big companies to say, then why don't you find another company, bring them under, and look at how you partner with them so that they can now have the same exposure, because you may be doing some of the same things. Why are we not innovatively thinking how we serve children? Because if we serve children, it shouldn't be serving your pockets first, it should be the kids. But I get it as a business. But let me challenge you.
Thank you.
I think we're done. Okay.
So I certainly have more questions, but I want to open it up to the audience. If there are any questions that you may have at this time before I proceed that you may want to ask. I want you all to get value out of the conversation. So if there's something that you all may be wondering or would like to ask, I want to open it up to you.
As a board member, that resonates for me because I'm having the same conversations, and yet I'm one of 9. And I'm in a unique situation in a unique city. I'm not native there, and I see what you're talking about. We're stuck in the same route. We think I'd like to give the analogy of if you want clams, you have chicken soup all this time and you want clam chowder. And I think a lot of people, when they think about reforming, if I put the ingredients in a different order, then I'm gonna have clam chowder. I said, no, you're gonna have chicken soup. And that's what we keep doing. We're not going out and I'm not, at this point, I'm not sure if it's a lack of, and this is kind of a statement, acknowledgement, and help me through this. I'm not sure if it's a lack of unwillingness or just a lack of the inability to see something different. And so, I mean, how did you, with your board, how did you get them to see that we need to look at this differently?
Yeah, I think, for one, you're under this conservatorship, so it's kind of this whole thing where now you're being forced to do something. But you'd be amazed when people have been forced to do something, they actually pull, they pull back even more, like you're fighting even more. You talk about familiar discomfort too and unfamiliar possibility. And so when you're trying to change the narrative of adult behavior, you really have to put systems in place. And then we have to agree on these systems. And so if this is what we're changing, what are we agreeing that needs to be changed? That's the first thing. What are we agreeing? So what don't we have that's to what you're saying, the ingredients? What's missing in the ingredients? Let's start there. So if this is chicken soup, what don't we like? What is missing in the chicken soup that could be in the chicken soup? And then you start agreeing on that if we put this in here, then, maybe it is a clam that could go in the chicken soup. Then how do we get the clam in the chicken soup? So it's like one by one, instead of changing this massive thing so fast, it's like, okay, here's the first system. We need a board goal. How do we attach the board goal to policy? So one thing I probably did so well was every time we wanted to change something, I had to anchor it in policy so it'll never change when I left.
So let me give you a little background. I worked in the system for 10 years as the director of policy.
So
I'm very clear about what we need to do.
Love it.
It's bringing the other board members who have not been operating in policy for a decade or so. I don't know what happened. But
it happens. You get comfortable, but they need a framework. And so what is the framework that you're operating from that says, here's where we can start from, here's where we need to go. And so you're looking in things, and what is it that we're holding the superintendent accountable? So one thing we had to do was get out of weeds, because you have a lot of voices. So here's the board work, here's the superintendent work.
And we're getting ready to do that now.
Yeah, we do the what, they do the how. Yeah. And if I can clear the lines in that, then it allows me to be more effective of, here's what we want. And so I'm only superintendent talking to you about what it wants. If I have to start telling you how I'm doing your job, and you may not be the best person for the job, or either I might not be the best board member that needs to be here because I want to do your job, I probably need to go find their job.
And that requires self-reflection.
And you have to get them there. And so that's why I said, so that's why we kept looking at data. So every time we talked about data and we put up 30%, who's the effector? Because what happens in this boardroom will ultimately affect what happens in the classroom. That's what we had to be the reminders of what they saw. So we became a PLC in our boardroom. We would put up data and we would go through the data. So our 8-hour board meetings then became 1-hour board meetings. Clear.
We'll talk.
Oh, yes.
Any other questions at this time? Perfect, though. I do want to, go back to, you had mentioned, Dr. Fleming, about being innovative with bringing in the minority vendors. And so this question kind of speaks to that. How do you balance the need for competitive bidding processes with the goal of increasing opportunities for minority consulting firms or smaller consulting firms?
You know, it just goes back to mindset of people seeing something different, right? You know, it's always this, I'll go first. It has to be someone that will go first and then come to platforms like this and talk about it. The competitive bidding, you know, as long as you understand policy on the competitive bidding, you know, people, they like to walk that walk. Like, oh, I only need to get 2. Mm-hmm. I just need to get 2. Well, it depends on what it is. Or I can make you a sole source. Under what? What are they doing that is different? It's those little things that, you know, sometimes we're just not educated on that will get us in trouble every single time. And so it's kind of like, you know, when you're saying, how do you do it? You know, my hope was that more people would now come to a space where they're learning these things. But, you know, you have so many small districts and we assume that just because you're in a larger district, the person who's talking knows what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. And we allow that just to be. I find that usually if you're in a smaller district, that person usually has to be the be all know all, and so they know so many things. And that usually person is the one that's growing the most in it. But count nothing out. We're at a precipice. One of the things that NABSE is that Locha, y'all, is so keen on is creating it here. Like, let's go first here. We have so many minority vendors are here. Then how do we create this space where, again, you see all those people in the exhibit hall. And at some point, many of those people that went out to eat with all the superintendents probably want a minority vendor. But at the same time, we know that they're here. So then how do we create spaces that when our school districts do business with the minority vendors here, the minority vendors give back to NABSE? Someone has to go first, so that we can see, and then you actually have the ability to show what you're able to do. And then when you talk about competitive bidding, now you have that under your belts, and now you can go and compete for more. And I will say this is what we're missing as well. We're doing it in silos. Mm-hmm. We're doing it in silos. There's no reason why Locha and I shouldn't be able to team up with the two of you in here, and we present ourselves as the company. We all have individual things that we bring forward. So what Dr. Dase cannot deny now is that, oh, they're a startup company. First he said, oh, you're the architect. Oh, you're the builder. Oh, you have the asphalt. Oh, yeah. We're here. And we played in different arenas, but we have the skill sets combined. And it can be the same with academics and anything else. So that's what you're bringing forward. But if I only go as myself, it looks like I have a team of one.
I think that's
Go ahead, please.
so important. Because one of the things that I think about minority vendors and give back. So there's things that you can put into your RFP that I talk, you can put in there that we're thinking about. Not only are you going to provide this service, but how are you going to support our students? Mm-hmm. And so that can be a plus. That's when a vendor said, I will not talk to you if there's an open RFP. If you are interested in ultimately applying for something when it comes open, then I can give you some thoughts on how to do that to make your application strong. Think about partnering with other minority vendors. Yes. And as you said, you're stronger as a team. Build a limited partnership for that purpose. Yes. You can still have this over here, but build that for that purpose. Build in things where you're working to support the students. For instance, if you're providing a service, you're providing us the sanitation services for our janitorial services for our buildings. Build in an internship for our students so they can learn from the front to the back. Yes. And so they're learning. So those are the kind of creative things that we can do in our RFP. Yes. To build in the equity. So I'm wondering if that's something that you thought about, that you've done. Somebody have a policy that we can take a look at that's creative. And I'm always, I don't like reinventing the wheel, but I also don't mind being innovative. Okay. So yes, absolutely.
And I do have a framework that I'll share later on. But even what you just said, that's why I like creating space for this conversation, because building an internship and having that within your RFP, that's gonna make vendors be like, what is it that I can do? And just asking the question. And I have talked with other organizations where they do specifically state that we need to have something embedded of you investing in our students or some way in our community? What does that look like? So I really like that. That's why I love these conversations. Okay, but I do have a framework that I'll share. One other question that I want to get to: when you start applying this lens to your purchasing practices, what organizational metrics shifted first? Did you see it on a district level, student level, teacher level? I'm just curious. I just want to know what did that look like?
I guess it was more qualitative and mindset shifts, and you get that from, when you give professional development, you have PLCs. How do you think? Did you learn anything new? What was the takeaways? What could you implement back at the school? So I can remember starting with the leaders, a lot more conversations came about it. And then you had organic initiatives coming from schools, and we used those as models that we could share with other schools. And now you're expanding from 1 to 2 to 4. Mm-hmm. So that's when I started seeing the work and saying, okay, it's one thing to lead the PLC, first class educators coming in leading the PLC, but when you go into a school and you see authentic initiatives coming out of that work, now you're like, this work is being transferred because the leader sees a benefit from this.
Yeah, I saw mine early on as a teacher when they would give when I worked in that side of town and they were giving resources on the other side of town and it didn't look like what we were getting. I knew right then and there that it was not equitable, and so something had to change. But the more I, moved up in the system, I started to see how when the budget came out, how the budget was divided and how other people were able to use compensatory funds for certain things, and we were made to use it for this one thing, using this one vendor, this one way, and still weren't able to get the results that we wanted. So quickly came to see from an educator to an administrator how the divide and how things were just, unequitable.
And I love how you keep going back to we don't evaluate programs enough. What we use, we don't evaluate. I think everything that we're spending money on, there should be some type of data set, qualitative, quantitative at the end of the year. You got a lot of districts just, oh yeah, we're renewing. We're renewing.
Easy.
But what was the impact? What was your return on investment that year? And that's a big part that's missing with the procurement process overall.
Return on academic investment.
Yes. And so that takes me to this next slide as well as the framework, the equitable procurement framework and checklist for districts. Please, I don't know what is going on with my equitable procurement framework and checklist for district leaders. This is something that you can scan. These are based on some of the metrics that we like to be assessed on when we go into an organization. One of the things that I always do, I present the work. I think that there should be a way that we can showcase the transformation that our organization is enacting in the district. So I always include that in our proposals, is that we want to come and present at a board meeting. We want to present our data. We want to present, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, we want to be able to show you what is happening, but also giving you as a district leader a framework to go off of. And this is for my vendors. I created this sustainability plan just doing the research. And if you've been in NABSE, I presented before, I really want to make sure that my community of minority vendors have a sustainability plan. After 3 years, it is typical that a minority-led organization is done. That's it. And we back on the plantation. Okay, I've survived 6 years. Okay, and I'm still doing what I need to do. So I am in the field as well in my 6th year, but I feel like I'm an anomaly because based on statistics, it should have happened in year 3. But really sharing this information from just learning through my journey, again, learning from mentors. Dr. Fleming has been very influential with coming to a community that I started and sharing from her expertise with her consulting business, licensing, and so forth. So again, just creating a sustainability plan that minority vendors can use so that they can make it past their year 3 and still make sure that they're providing high quality services to districts. So this is in regards to the framework, okay? And that is for vendors. Lastly, I don't want to hold my leaders accountable to this. I might not include this on the film, but I just always like to showcase, okay, these is your big name companies. When I talk to leaders, I don't even have to say names. When we're talking about big box organizations that have been getting the contracts, that have been contracting with the largest districts in the nation, okay, the 100 largest districts, McGraw-Hill, 136 years old. Okay, so even when we talk about qualifying a vendor, what have you done in them 130 some years? Like, I want to check your background. I want to know who you were affiliated with. And I'm not trying to nerd out, but when you research and you know that they connected with the S&P Global 500 and the mortgages and the 2008 crisis and foreclosures, and we look at systemically how that's impacted our community.
Yes.
When our grannies and our pawpaws houses is foreclosed on, and now our educational system is being foreclosed on, in a sense, like what are we doing? You got to take that into consideration. The design team. I know several districts that consult with the 95% group. And again, when we look at the design team and they're servicing districts that have 90+% African American or Latinx student populations, they've never served in organizations that even service the babies that they're selling the products to. Right? And then when I'm going through a PD, if they training me on a product, this no red ink or this low miss, I gotta go check the background. I can't just sit and listen to people. And I know even for me, I want people to go check my reference. I want them to Google Locha Brooks because I'm a black girl with locks, the lashes. I want them to see what's going on. I do that with the companies. I can't, when I go and I see these young folks that don't look like me, the skin don't look like me, coming out of tech, or, and now they've entered the sales force for educational products, ain't never been in the classroom, but they doing the PD on how to use their program with our babies. These are things that we should be looking at as leaders, as board members, of qualifying this organization on doing business with us. So I just wanted to show, these are the names that are out there that they getting them. Go ahead.
And they're still experimenting. They're coming up with new products and they're experimenting on our children. The same way you can say that you have new minority vendors out there. It's still an experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just wanted to take a moment to spotlight a few minority vendors that are here at NABSE every year. I look up to some of these vendors as well. This is Athletics, a gentleman out of Florida. He has an amazing transformational math products. When you go and pull up his white pages in the research and you see how he's closing the gaps compared to 2009 to 2024, closing the gaps with the African American students, it's just amazing. Right? We're not seeing those gaps being closed with the traditional products that are being brought in, but we have minority vendors that come here to the conference. They're closing it by 17 percentage points, 21 percentage points over the years of organizations using it and showcasing their data. So I really wanted to give them a shout out, as well as Black History 365, and just to plug, Dr. Fleming did also write curriculum on behalf of this organization. But you can see
this book. I'm a curriculum writer for that book.
For this book, and then just the endorsements alone from certain people. I don't know if y'all know John Hope Bryant, but he's an amazing financial advisor, guru, all of the things. But just the endorsements that they have and the work that they're doing. I showcase some of this. It's very hard to read, but some people that wrote in response to Black History 365 when their Latin history book, they wrote a letter to them because they were so surprised when they went through the curriculum and saw some of their relatives being mentioned and linked and referenced and resources that linked to them. So they were just appreciating them for that. So even when we talk about qualifying organizations, it's not always about the numbers, right? So having qualitative dialogue about how this product is actually transforming or resonating with educators and the people that it's serving, the students that it's serving. So I just wanted to showcase that. And then, of course, I have to talk about my baby, First Class Educator. The programs that we are administering in districts where we are seeing 12% increase in staff retention in 2025, okay? When we have staff that are staying, when we know we are losing teachers left and right or educators left and right, reduction in truancy rates, all of these different initiatives taking place up under the work that we're doing, establishing partnerships with community providers. That's another thing that I think should be taken into consideration. Vendors, I mean, they don't have to be there for a decade or 20 decades. How are they sustaining the work? So one of the things that we do, we make sure that we find community partners that the district can engage with and carry out the work. So these are just some of the initiatives that have sprung out of our work: Black Male Summits, culturally responsive building walks, and so forth. So that is my time. I definitely want to open it up for any questions that you all may have at this time, and just be respectful of your time, trying to stay on track a little bit. If you all had any questions for the panelists, for myself.
Going once. Going twice. Sold. No questions.
All right, that's that teacher wait time. I would certainly like for you all, if you could just scan this, I would like your feedback on how did we do, and if there's more information that we can provide. Just a short survey. Yes, sir. Ask. Go ahead. I know you was getting it out. I got better teacher wait time, you know.
It wasn't fully.
Oh, you talk. It was my wait time.
It was a wait time.
Oh man.
It was a wait time. It was a wait time.
No, just hearing y'all talk about different aspects and like kind of uplift the minority vendors. Is there any like NABSE is like a collection of like all the superintendents from around the U.S. and internationally. Is there like I'm thinking of like, all right, these are top 5 minority vendors of this year based upon people's references, or here's the data on these vendors and kind of how they've impacted. I think it seems like it could be valuable information for like superintendents or people in chief positions in districts, and like, but I know you said you do that, but like, I don't know if that was like
So one of the things that I've been working on in partnership with NABSE is forming a minority cooperative partnership where all of the minority vendors have an opportunity to partner with NABSE to be vetted, to be placed on an approved providers list. And that means that they have credentialed us, that they've reviewed us, and they're able to provide with confidence a recommendation to superintendents who are part of the larger body. So if that answers your question, it is actually going to be on the agenda for the first quarter next year. It's something that has been presented to the board. I actually had a petition. My session last year that I did, I engaged all of the minority vendors that were present. If this was something they was interested in being a part of, would they see value in it? And based on their response, I submitted it to the executive board, and that's something that's going to be on their agenda for the first quarter, with them looking to potentially start that initiative.
Yeah.
And then is there like the term like minority vendor, like what comes to mind is just like stuff is going to help quote unquote minority students, but it doesn't have to be necessarily, right? Because like it just means it's minority owned, right?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So does that ever like cause like barriers for like when it gets presented, where people might think that, oh, it's just for like minority students?
Oh no, you have a whole. That's why it's the MWBE. Like those are certifications that endorsements and certifications that are out there. So in the business world, that's well known.
Okay.
There's a reason why that's there, because again, for that reason that we're at, there's a
reason why they're
deficit.
taking it away too.
Yeah, there's a reason, right? Because there was a deficit. Well, yeah, now they are. But there was a deficit in how those contracts were given and everything else. So we're calling it minority vendors because we know we were minority vendors, and they have not just yet. And here's the thing: they're not going to take it away in every state. Let me say that there are states that will still recognize that and still open up. But I'm saying it's the mindset behind that. So when we're saying minority, I think for this state space, minority vendor is the mindset in which
so
we're conscious of who we're going after and doing business with, and not just saying, oh, that was low-mid education. Sure, McGraw-Hill, automatic. Does that make sense? It's like, how do we open it up, and then how we vet all those resources and people.
Thank you. Any other questions? I certainly appreciate you all for your time. Not sure if you all Scan those QR codes if you want to connect. But Dr. Fleming is very active in NABSE. If you all are not engaged with your local, she's just a wealth of knowledge. Dr. Dase as well. And again, this organization is just so great for, coming to get refined in your practice and then just engaging in high level networking with Black excellence when it comes to the leader. So thank y'all for attending, and thank you all for speaking on my panel. I appreciate y'all.
No problem.
Y'all are amazing.
Always.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right. I want